title, The Humiliation That the Millionaire Farmer's Kids Dealt to the Rancher Will Change Everything. Chapter 1. The Mysterious Beginning. From the very first moment, an eerie silence hung over the old farmhouse, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves, stirred by an unseen breeze. Strange shadows flickered across the cracked walls, as if the house itself held secrets desperate to be uncovered. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like a whispered warning, while outside, the distant howl of a lone wolf sent chills down his spine. Something was undeniably wrong. A hidden truth lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to unravel. The air grew thick with anticipation as unexplained lights danced in the darkness, and the townsfolk's hushed rumors spoke of an ancient curse that no one dared to challenge. Each strange occurrence piled upon the last, weaving a tangled web of mystery that pulled John Harrison deeper into the story, craving to know what sinister forces were at play. His heart raced as he found himself staring at the empty fields, once alive with laughter and the scent of rich earth. Now they felt like an ominous void. Reports had circulated, scandal traveling faster than the storm clouds rolling in above. His children, once the pride of his life, were now entangled in a corruption scandal so heinous it threatened to bring ruin upon the farm he had built with blood, sweat, and tears. The townsfolk pointed fingers, their voices like knives, slicing through him, filled with derision and disbelief. Out of the blue, on a night when the sky crackled with electric tension, a cloaked figure appeared on his doorstep. Rain dripped down the dark robe, pooling at his feet like secrets waiting to be spilled. John felt a shiver race through him. The stranger's voice, low and haunting, sent tremors through his very soul. "You don't know all there is to know about your family. The truth could save you, or destroy everything you hold dear." The weight of the words hung heavy in the air. John squinted into the stranger's shadowed face, searching for a glimmer of reassurance, but found only darkness. A foreboding sense gripped him. What truth? What lineage? The storm raged outside, tumbling branches and leaves swirling violently, mirroring the maelstrom of doubt within him. His children's names echoed in his mind like a mournful melody, filled with pain and longing. Torn between his loyalty to them and the undeniable urge to uncover the truth, John felt a lump in his throat tighten unbearably. The stakes had never been higher. Tornadoes of gossip and whispers spiraled through the town, a sharp reminder that reputations were fragile and betrayal could come from the closest of kin. As John began to piece together cryptic fragments of a hidden past, a startling revelation unfurled, a thread connecting not just his farm's dilemma, but the very essence of his heritage. With urgent energy pulsing through him, he understood he could no longer stand idly by. The winds of fate howled around him. Decisions loomed like thunderheads, ready to burst. Everything could change. Would John dive into the darkness that threatened to swallow him whole in search of the truth that might set them free? Or would he shield his children, ignoring the storm brewing in their home? The weight of his legacy pressed down on him, shrouded by the chaos swirling outside and within. What choice would he make? The moment of truth was approaching, and only he could decide whether to face it head on or flee into the shadows. The winds howled as John stood frozen, the air charged with an electricity that vibrated through his very core. The cloaked figure lingered, shadows clinging tightly to him like a shroud. The truth, the stranger intoned, is deeper than you think. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the tension. The sound echoed through the farmhouse, slicing through the darkness. John whipped around, heart pounding, searching the shadows. Is it the children? Panic clawed at his throat, squeezing tighter and tighter. Without a word, he rushed inside, desperation fueling his every step. The hallway was dimly lit, the flicker of the old lantern casting grotesque shapes against the walls. He burst into the living room, breath hitching at the sight before him. His son, Michael, lay sprawled on the ground, clutching his head, tears streaming down his face. The air was thick with the smell of burnt paper. "Dad, they know! I didn't mean to!" he gasped. John knelt beside him, brushing Michael's hair from his forehead. "What happened?" "Who knows? It's the letters. They found the letters," Michael sobbed, voice trembling, hand shaking uncontrollably. "They're all real, both of them. The scandal, it's worse than we thought." His heart dropped. "What do you mean?" Sweating palms met the cool, hard floor. The world outside howled like a creature unleashed. But the chaos in his home was far more menacing. "The farmers' kids, the millionaires," he struggled to say through for something dark. "They say she's not who we think." The words sank into John like a boulder tossed into a calm lake. Ripples of disbelief spread throughout his mind, a deepening fog of confusion. Had his late wife truly carried such a burden, such a hidden shame? Why would she do that? John's voice trembled. What did she trade? Suddenly, a loud crash shook the room, drawing their attention toward the doorway. The cloaked figure had stepped into the room, his face still obscured. "You need to listen, now." Every instinct screamed at John to run, to protect his son, but the urgency in the figure's voice was magnetic. "The truth about your wife, John. You can't run from it anymore." Before he could respond, the cloaked figure flung back his hood. John staggered back, the blood draining from his face. The stranger bore a striking resemblance. It felt like looking into a twisted mirror. It was his brother, Daniel, believed dead for over a decade. "You left me to die, but I survived. Now you have to face the truth about her. We're tied to a legacy of darkness, and they're coming for you all." Shock overwhelmed him. Questions raced through his mind. How was this possible? Pain and anger twisted his heart. You're alive? Why didn't you come home?" "Because I couldn't," Daniel's voice cracked. "I didn't know how." Amid the chaos, the truth crept in like a thief. His family was shrouded in a darker history than he ever imagined. The storm outside raged with fury, but the tempest brewing inside was even worse. John's chest tightened as he glanced at Michael, eyes wide with fear. Everything we knew, it's all about to change. Would they brace themselves for the storm of revelations to come? Or would they plunge deeper into the shadows, unsure of what awaited them? The tension in the air thickened, heavy with uncertainty. The pieces of a shattered puzzle hovered just out of reach, daring him to pull them together before everything was lost. John's mind spun with disbelief as he stared into Daniel's eyes. The revelation of his brother's survival was a cascading shockwave that echoed through the shadows of the living room. How could this be? He felt the room swirl around him, the storm outside clawing at the edges of his sanity. "Why now?" John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why come back after all these years?" Daniel's gaze hardened. "Because it's not just your family at stake. It's the entire legacy." His words hung thick and heavy, pressing against John's chest like a vice. Michael trembled at his father's side, eyes darting between the two men. "What do you mean, Dad? What legacy?" But before John could respond, a sudden crash shattered the window, shards of glass exploding into the room. A ball of fire shot through the opening, rolling across the floor like a living thing, searing everything in its path. John leaped to shield Michael. "Get down!" The heat was unbearable. John's heart hammered as he pulled his son to the ground, and Daniel dove toward them too. But before they could regroup, the flames flickered and morphed, a blinding light engulfing them all. In an instant, the fire surged and then vanished, as if it had never existed. John blinked, heart racing, as he pushed himself up, searching for Daniel. "Where is he? Where's Daniel?" But the living room was empty, the shadows stretching longer as the eerie silence pressed down on them. Just shadows and remnants of fear. "Dad, where did he go?" Michael's voice trembled, rising with panic. John's throat tightened. "I don't know." The weight of the situation descended on him again, heavier than before. He turned slowly, eyes scanning the room, when another flicker caught his attention. On the far wall, there was a small, polished box. It looked familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. Intrigued, he approached, Michael clinging to his leg. As John reached for the box, a surge of electricity jolted through him, drawing him closer, igniting memories buried deep. He flipped it open. Inside lay letters, old and worn, their edges frayed. The name on the top letter caught his breath. To John. His hands trembled as he pulled it out. As he read, the letters revealed horrors he never imagined. Secrets about his mother. Connections to the wealthy farmer's family. The trade wasn't just land. It was a promise, a pact made generations ago that bound them to darkness. Every word unraveled a new layer of betrayal, their roots tangled deep within his family tree. "No, it can't be," he whispered, the words freezing on his lips, heavy as lead. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble echoing outside. The windows rattled violently, and the lights flickered. Michael screamed, clenching his fists. "Dad, what's happening?" John's heart raced as he turned to the door. The storm outside had morphed into chaos. "We have to go now." But another figure burst through the doorway, a woman, soaked from the rain, her eyes wild with fear. "John, it's happened. The curse is breaking. You have to decide." The urgency in her voice struck like a bell. John's breath caught in his throat. He recognized her. It was Clara, a childhood friend who had known his family's secrets. "Clara?" His mind raced. "What do you mean?" "The farmer's kids care more than you think. They want you, John, for the truth. Shock rippled through him. The pieces clicked, sending chills cascading up his spine. What could it mean? John, we're all in danger. You're part of this, whether you like it or not. Clara's eyes sparkled with both fear and determination. Suddenly, the lights flickered one last time, standing them in stark, terrifying clarity. In that moment, John understood. Their lives had been woven into a fabric of shadows and darkness. The past wasn't just something to uncover. It was a living beast, ready to devour him whole. Who are we really? John breathed, raw terror gripping his chest. The storm outside roared, the fate of their family hanging like a fragile thread. The question lingered, heavy and charged. Would he grab hold of the truth or allow it to tear them apart? The storm roared outside, but inside, silence wrapped around them like a heavy blanket. John's heart thundered in his chest as he faced Clara. What truth? He rasped. What legacy? Clara took a trembling breath, her eyes wide and glistening with urgency. You have to know about your mother, John. Suddenly, the ground shook. Again, more violently this time. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the walls quaked as if the house itself was warning them. John grabbed Michael, pulling him close. Stay down! Clara stumbled back, panic flashing across her face. No! The curse! It's waking, and it wants something! Before John could process her words, a blinding light erupted in the center of the room, washing over everything. Shadows twisted and turned, morphing into grotesque shapes. With a deafening crack, the light exploded, blinding him momentarily. He shielded Michael, his chest tight, heart racing, and then it was gone. Just as quickly as it had appeared, the light dissipated, leaving a swirl. Was staring, mouth agape. It can't be, she breathed, taking a step back. What? What can't be? John demanded, fear creeping up his spine. Clara fixed her gaze past him, eyes wide. The letters, the truth about your mother and you. John frowned, confusion flooding his thoughts. What do you mean, and you? His voice trembled. Before Clara could answer, the mist formed into a figure. Long hair, delicate features, and familiar yet haunting eyes. Mother? John whispered, feeling warmth flooding his heart, and then freezing it cold. At that moment, the figure slowly faded away, leaving behind a single object, a locket that clattered to the floor. John knelt, trembling. With shaking fingers, he picked it up, recognizing the engraving. His mother's initials, shining even in the dim light. The locket felt warm against his palm. What just happened? Michael's voice cut through the air, raw and desperate. Is she here? John swallowed hard, looking at the locket. I don't know, but I feel like we just opened something we can't close again. Clara stepped closer, eyes filled with dread. The truth about your mother, John. It's tied to the dark legacy she tried to escape. And what you saw. No? Please, Clara, tell me. But as she opened her mouth, a loud crash came from the front of the house. Before they could react, the door splintered open, and with it, shadows flooded through, dark and ominous. Figures loomed in the doorway, ghostly apparitions lifelike yet unnerving. Where is she? One demanded, voice low and threatening. You unlocked the door. The truth belongs to us. John recoiled, pulling Michael behind him. "Stay back!" Panic stirred within him, a primal drive to protect. But the air crackled with energy, the shadows swirling around them, echoing laughter that sent chills down his spine. And then he noticed it, the figure among the shadows, bearing a striking resemblance to Clara. "John, I'm sorry," the apparition whispered, voice a haunting echo of Clara's. "You shouldn't have seen this. We're not who you think we are." Blood ran cold through John's veins. "What do you mean?" he gasped, staggering back. But before the specter could answer, Michael's scream pierced the air. "Dad, don't let them take me!" In that instant, everything shifted. Clara lunged, the shadowy figures advanced, their hands reaching out and twisting around John and Michael, overwhelming them in darkness. John's heart raced as he fought against the shadows. "Get away from him!" His voice boomed, desperation clawing at him. But as the shadows tightened their grip, the truth began to unravel. His family, their secrets, everything he thought he knew was collapsing. And there, in the heart of chaos, when all seemed lost, John felt a surge of warmth from the locket. Memories flooded back. The laughter of his childhood, his mother's kind eyes, and then an unsettling realization. "Who are you?" he shouted again. The shadows swirling closer, blurring lines between friend and foe. What had Clara meant? What pact had his mother made? And now, what dark fate awaited them all? As shadows enveloped them, he felt the weight of generations pressing down. And the echoes of long-hidden secrets swirled in his mind, whispering answers he wasn't ready to hear. Everything was about to change. The shadows closed in, wrapping around John and Michael like a dark blanket. The air turned electric, crackling with tension and wild uncertainty. He held Michael tighter, heart racing at the looming figures, their eyes burning like coals in the dark. "Stay behind me," John shouted, voice shaky but firm. The specters hovered, whispering among themselves, their intentions hidden beneath a shroud of darkness. Clara's expression shifted, her fear morphing into something else, an eerie calm. But before he could question her, a blinding flash shot forward, illuminating the room in a harsh white light. John squinted, feeling a tight knot of dread forming in his stomach. The light swirled, consuming all darkness, and then it stopped. A woman appeared in the center of the room, brilliant and terrifying. Her hair billowed like flames around her, skin glowing, eyes piercing right through John. It was Maria, his mother, as vivid as he remembered, yet different. "John," she said, her voice both familiar and unsettling, "you must listen." He staggered backward, the locket still clutched in his hand. Michael gasped, eyes wide. "Mom, but you're—" Words faltered, the truth of her presence twisted inside him. "I've watched over you," she continued, her tone frantic yet strangely authoritative. "The curse has awakened. It connects you to the farmer line. You must understand the sacrifice. It was never meant to bind you, but to protect." "Protect us?" John shouted, confusion boiling over. "From what?" Shadows flickered at her feet. Her presence felt like a storm. "From them. The true curse lies not in the pact, but in the blood. Your father didn't just lose land. He lost a part of himself. Tension electrified the air. "What do you mean?" John's voice cracked. Memories of his childhood flashed past him. His father's quiet despair, his mother's secretive glances. They were tied to something dark. "Are you saying we're cursed?" "Yes," she gasped, stepping closer, urgency flooding her eyes. "But the truth is worse than you imagine." Just then, the room trembled again, shadows shifting like restless spirits. Their whispers grew, entwining around John's heart, squeezing tight. "Mom, what are you saying?" he pleaded, confusion mingling with terror. With a sudden force, she reached out, hand glowing. "You need to understand. The truth I hid was not just to protect you. It was to keep you away from the darkness that flows through our family's veins." Before he could react, a blinding flash erupted from the locket, illuminating the room in an otherworldly glow. The shadows recoiled, gasping as if they were alive. And then, his mother's figure began to dissolve, her features twisting in anguish. "No, I can't lose you again!" John yelled, a lump forming in his throat. "Stop!" she shouted, the word piercing through the chaos. "The time has come to choose your path. You'll see how deep this goes." Then she vanished. The room felt empty, like a breath held too long. Suddenly, everything felt wrong. The shadows moved with purpose, swirling around John, their voices merging into a cacophony, echoing his name. "John." "The past is never truly gone," Clara said, her eyes deep with understanding. "You need to decide. Do you want to embrace the darkness or fight it?" With those words, something shifted beneath his feet. The floorboards creaked and cracked, and a blinding light erupted again, brighter than before. And with that light came a pain, sharp and chaotic, as memories flooded in. Scattered pieces of a life he thought was his, now twisted into a new horror. Images of betrayal, hidden truths, and a forgotten sibling surfaced, stirring inside him. John fell to his knees, clutching his head, heart racing, fear coursing through his veins. "What have you done?" whispered the shadows, mixed with Clara's voice, echoing in waves. "What have you awakened?" Through the disorientation, a daunting question emerged. What was this legacy he never knew? And as shadowy hands reached out, ready to pull him into the dark, an understanding crept in. This wasn't just about protecting his family anymore. It was about facing the truth of who they were. He had to decide, but with each choice came consequences deeper than he had ever imagined. "Dad!" Michael cried, breaking through the chaos, pulling John back toward reality. John's breath hitched, eyes wide. This was new territory, a crossroads for their family, a fight against ancient forces. Were they truly ready to uncover what waited out there? The walls echoed with unspoken questions. What now? The shadows coiled tighter around John and Michael, their presence heavy and suffocating. Clara's face went pale, her eyes darting between John and the ominous figures closing in around them. John felt the panic rising in his chest. "What do we do?" he gasped, gripping Michael's hand. Clara opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she pointed toward the door. "We have to run! They're not just shadows. They're a part of the curse." Before they could take a step, the figures lunged at them, the darkness swirling like a storm. John thrust his body in front of Michael, heart racing. "Stay behind me!" Then something incredible happened. The locket in John's hand began to pulse with warm light, pushing back the shadows as if it had a will of its own. The swirling forms halted, voices quaking, whispering in fear. But just as hope flickered, a voice split through the chaos, intense and unyielding. "No, you will not escape." The room trembled again, and John's gaze snapped toward the source. A new figure stepped forward, shrouded in smoke and shadow, but undeniably recognizable. It was Daniel, John's brother, his eyes glinting maliciously in the dim light. "Daniel?" John's voice was a mix of confusion and horror. "What are you doing?" Daniel smirked, a chilling grin that sent shivers down John's spine. "You've opened up the floodgates, brother. You weren't meant to see the truth, but now it's all unraveling." The shadows shifted, forming a barrier behind Daniel, silently locking them in. Clara gasped, realization dawning on her. You were playing us all along." Daniel's laughter echoed, dark and taunting. "Oh, it's much worse than that. This curse doesn't only bind you, it gives me power, and I plan to take everything from you. The past, the land, all of it." John's heart sank, the weight of betrayal crashing down. Michael tugged at his leg. Fear plastered across his face. "Dad, what's happening?" But instead of answering, John felt a surge of rage building within him. "Why are you doing this?" he boomed, stepping forward. "You turned your back on the family, on me!" Daniel's expression twisted, anger flashing. "Your mother chose to protect you, but in doing so, she doomed us all. Every secret, every betrayal, this is her legacy, and you've inherited it." The ground beneath them shuddered once more. The walls moaned, revealing dark cracks that grew like giant mouths, ready to swallow them whole. Shadows flicked like tongues of fire, anxious to lash out. In the chaos, John turned toward the box with the letters, realization crashing over him. The letters! What did Mom really want to protect us from? His chest tightened painfully. He began to piece together the truth, connecting the dots of his mother's sacrifice. Daniel stepped closer, darkness pooling around him. "You think you can save yourself? You've unleashed a force you can't control. Join me, and we can rule the legacy together. Or prepare to lose everything." Just then, something crackled in the air. A bright flash erupted from the locket, plunging the room into an obliterating light that burst outwards like fireworks. It consumed Daniel and the shadows, sending them spiraling into a whirlwind of despair. John grabbed Michael, shielding him from the chaos, and in that moment, Clara screamed, clutching her head as if she were being pulled apart. "No! You can't do this!" But it was too late. The light intensified, engulfing everything. Time felt suspended, stretching the air thick with anguish, until in an instant it all collapsed into darkness. John's heart raced, uncertainty consuming him. "What just happened?" he managed to whisper, as silence fell hard around them. When the brightness faded, he found himself back at the farmhouse, but everything felt altered. "Where's Daniel?" Michael's voice wavered, panic flooding his small body. The walls felt eerily familiar, yet distant, shadows creeping in like whispers of lost memories. John blinked, confusion swirling. I don't know, but I think we're not just free from him. We've awakened something worse. Suddenly, Clara's scream pierced the air again, louder and more desperate than before. No, not him. He was the key. What? What do you mean? John asked, feeling the world tilt beneath him. But before she could respond, a terrible rumbling shook the ground again, and a chilling realization sunk in. They weren't safe. Not now. Not ever. Then what happens next? John's voice trembled as dread clawed at his heart. The shadows outside began to close in once more, whispering truths that went beyond anything he could comprehend. What had they unleashed? What now lingered in the depths of the darkness? The curse was only beginning. Chapter 2. The Unveiling. The shadows loomed, dark and heavy. John felt the chill seep into his bones. He crouched low, pulling Michael close, the weight of fear pressing against his chest. Clara stood beside them, eyes darting, pulse racing. "We need to get out!" she urged, voice tight with anxiety. Just as John turned to lead his family toward the kitchen, the ground shook again. A terrible groan echoed through the walls, making them tremble. Dust rained down like tiny reminders of their impending doom. "Come on!" he shouted, gripping Michael's arm tightly as they rushed toward the front door. But before they could make it, Daniel's voice screeched through the air, sharp and mocking. "You think you're free? The shadows won't let you escape!" With a sudden flash, the locket in John's hand glowed fiercely. The oppressive darkness recoiled, as if stung. John could feel the weight it had carried, the secrets twisting beneath the surface. "Stay back!" he shouted, heart pounding, trying to protect his son. Then, from within the glow, a sudden silence fell. The shadows hesitated, as if unsure of their next move. The air grew thick with tension, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Michael clung tightly to John's leg, eyes wide and fearful. The locket pulsated rhythmically now, almost alive. And in that moment, something inside John twisted painfully. "What if the locket is the key?" Clara gasped, realization dawning. "What if it reveals the truth?" Before John could respond, the air ignited with a sudden blinding light. Heart racing, he squinted against the brilliance, feeling as if he were being pulled towards something unknown. Then, in a flash, everything came crashing down. The glow cracked open like thunder, revealing an apparition that twisted and turned before them. A whirlwind of memories, faces overlapping, voices blending. Each image pulled at John's heart, sparking confusion and recognition. He thought he knew. "Mom?" he whispered, hope mingling with fear. Suddenly, the scene changed, and he was standing before an old stone altar in a dimly lit room, surrounded by shadowy figures. All members of his family, he thought, had perished. His breath caught in his throat. Was this a vision? A memory? And then he saw it. The truth he had never imagined. His mother, Maria, stood at the altar, her voice echoing through the ages. "We bind ourselves to the shadows to protect you," she declared, "to keep the darkness at bay." His heart was in his throat. "No, this can't be," he gasped, every word a storm of disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me?" But before she could answer, a scream pierced the air, a sharp, chilling sound that shook into his core. Daniel's figure emerged from the shadows, eyes ablaze with fury. "You need to understand, brother. This isn't about family loyalty anymore. This is about survival." With a swift, thunderous crash, the altar erupted. Shards of stone flew through the air. John shielded Michael as debris rained down. But as the dust settled, he felt a chilling hand grasp his shoulder. Startled, he whipped around, finding himself face to face with Clara. But everything about her had changed. Her eyes glowed an eerie blue, and she smiled with a knowing grimace that sent shivers down his spine. "You should have left it alone, John. We don't belong in the light. We belong to the shadows." A piercing realization struck, enveloping him in despair. "What are you saying?" he stammered, voice trembling. "What have you done?" The shadows by her side began to swirl violently, and the weight of her betrayal crashed around him like a tidal wave. "It was never just about family. You, Michael. The legacy hasn't ended. It's just beginning," Clara whispered, voice dripping with something darker than he ever knew. John's heart raced, pain radiating through him as he pieced together the truth. Clara had never been an ally. She was part of the very darkness they had feared. "No, this can't be!" His voice faltered, breath quickening with panic. "You played us all along!" Laughter filled the air, a haunting echo in the shrinking space. The shadows pressed closer, longing to consume him. "Get away!" he shouted, pushing Michael behind him, terror seeping into his bones. But Clara stepped forward. "You can't escape what you truly are. The blood ties run deeper than you think." The room pulsated with chaos, swirling shadows ready to engulf them. John's mind raced, desperation clawing at him. He felt the locket burning hot in his palm, the wall of his family's dark history collapsing around them. What had he unleashed? And what peril lay ahead? The storm outside raged louder, the wind howling like a beast. In that moment, John realized they weren't just battling shadows anymore. They were facing the sudden fury of their own bloodline. Everything he had known warped and twisted, leaving only raw questions. He held Michael close, heart pounding, breath quickening. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the truth that could either save them or destroy everything they held dear. The shadows pressed in, darker now. John felt the weight of fear wrap around him, tightening like a noose. Clara's face twisted in that menacing smile. "You can't escape what you truly are," she said, voice dripping with mockery. "Stop it!" he shouted, gripping Michael tighter. Panic swelled in his chest as he scanned the shadow-streaked room. The air felt electric, a storm brewing just under the surface. Michael's small voice trembled. Beside him, "Dad, I'm scared!" "I know, buddy. Just stay close," John managed. Though his own heart raced with dread, he could feel the blackness moving, undulating like a living creature, and Clara's laugh echoed, a chilling reminder that some alliances were far darker than they seemed. Suddenly, the locket in John's hand became unbearably hot. He stared down at it, the engraved initials of his mother glistening ominously. "What's happening?" he gasped. A wave of heat radiating from the locket. It vibrated violently, and the shadows seemed to stir in response, as if drawn to its light. "John, it's—" Clara shouted, but she was cut off as a wave of power surged from the locket. engulfing the room in blinding brightness. John shut his eyes, shielding Michael with his body. If they could just withstand this searing light, maybe they'd break free from Clara's twisted game. For a moment, there was silence. The shadows recoiled, retreating from the force. When John opened his eyes, he was not in the farmhouse anymore. They stood on a battlefield, dirt and ash swirling, the cries of long-lost souls echoing in the wind. Surrounding him were figures, memories of his family, faces from faded photographs, shadows of his ancestors rising from the past. "Mom! Dad!" John shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. But they stood silent, locked in a moment, trapped in an eternal battle he didn't understand. "Why didn't you tell me?" he cried, the pain slicing through. "In sharp as a knife. You needed to discover the truth for yourself," one figure spoke, the voice unmistakable. It was his mother, Maria, resurrected amidst the ashes. "Mom, you're alive?" Shock washed over him like ice water. "Not quite," she replied solemnly. "I am bound to this land, to this curse we accepted long ago. The truth is a weight we all carry." "But Clara," John began, the betrayal feeling too great to bear. "Clara has her own ties," Maria interrupted, turning her gaze to the shadows flickering at the edges of their vision. "She is part of the darkness you must face." Suddenly, Clara let out a horrifying shriek. "No! You don't know what you're doing!" She lunged forward, but the light surrounding John flared, pushing her back. In that moment, revelation hit him like a freight train. What if she's not just an ally? What if she wants to become part of the curse too? But before he could finish that thought, the ground beneath them quaked violently, splitting open. John lunged forward, gripping Michael tighter. They were teetering on the brink of madness. "I'll be your salvation," Clara screamed, reaching for John, her form flickering in and out of reality. "You need me to embrace the darkness." "No!" John cried, instinctively stepping back. The shadows howled, furious at the revelation. But it was too late. With one final surge, the light from the locket burst forth, and with it came a shocking truth. Clara froze, her expression shifting. "You think you can break free? You have no idea what you're unleashing." As the shadows writhed, the ground cracked open wider, revealing depths that echoed with voices of the damned. Clara's expression fell, eyes widening in horror. "No! Not him! Not him!" Before John could comprehend her words or what lay below, a chilling laugh erupted through the chaos, a deep, resonating sound that shook him to the core. A figure emerged from the depths, a monstrous shape that resembled Daniel, but twisted with rage and darkness. "You finally uncovered the truth. Welcome back to the family, John." The horrific realization sank in like a stone in water. Everything he thought he knew shattered before him. Daniel was not just alive. He was part of something far more sinister. And they were all entangled in a web of darkness thicker than blood. "Who are we really?" John whispered, trembling. The shadows danced, celebrating the new chaos. The question lingered in the air, echoing through the cracks, waiting for an answer. Was freedom even possible? Or were they all doomed to repeat the mistakes of generations past? The shadows danced wildly, swirling around John and Michael. the darkness alive with malice and twisted intent. John felt his heart race, trapped between Daniel's wicked laugh and Clara's haunting visage. "This isn't over," Clara hissed, her eyes glinting like shards of glass. The chaos washed over them, pushing against John. Like a tidal wave. "Mom!" he cried, desperation clawing at him. "What do we do?" "Trust the light," Maria's voice echoed in his mind, urging him onward as the darkness clamored ever closer. With trembling hands, John held up the locket. It pulsed with heat and light, drawing the shadows like moths. Daniel sneered, dark energy crawling around him. "You think that trinket can save you? You know nothing of the true power at play." Suddenly, the ground beneath them quaked violently, splitting open with an agonizing roar. The rift widened, revealing a void of swirling blackness that seemed to breathe like a living entity. John felt himself teetering on the edge of despair. "Hold on!" he shouted to Michael. But the boy's small frame trembled with fear. As John fought to keep them steady, something flickered at the edge of the void. A familiar face, a glimmer of warmth in the cold darkness. It was a woman, standing on the precipice with an outstretched hand. "Help me!" she cried out. Desperation etched across her features. "Mom?" John gasped, confusion and hope battling within him. "Is that really you?" Yet in that moment, everything shifted. The woman's eyes darkened, revealing the shadows lurking behind her gaze. "You can't trust her!" Clara shouted, her voice shrill and frantic. "She's the curse!" But John could barely process the betrayal in Clara's words, too entranced by the figure before him. "I've come to help you," the woman's voice was soft, enticing, laced with a sense of familiarity that was almost unbearable. The shadows writhed violently, refusing to allow the light to shine through. "No, this isn't just about you, this is about the truth," Daniel roared, his eyes blazing with fury. "John," the woman pleaded, echoing the love he remembered, the warmth that had always soothed him. "You must choose between the shadows and the light." Before he could respond, Clara lunged forward, pushing Michael behind her with a fierce urgency. "You don't know what you're doing," she warned. In that instant, the shadowy tendrils surged forward, reacting violently as if they knew the danger of the woman's presence. The rift unleashed a howling wind, pulling at everyone's clothes and hair, enveloping them in chaos. "Mom, please!" John's heart raced, torn between the reality of the woman he loved and the fear trickling in from Clara's frantic eyes. "What do I do?" Then the breeze shifted like a slap in the face. The woman's image flickered, revealing something horrifying. A dark mass spread behind her, pulling her into the abyss. "I made the sacrifice for you, John," she cried, desperation twisting her face. And another truth erupted from the shadows. "She's the heart of the curse," Daniel sneered, smirking with a sickening glee. "You think you can save her? You'll only make it worse." "Mom, no!" John's voice cracked, chest tightening as the truth hit him like a punch. The woman wasn't there to save them. She was the cost of their family's dark legacy. "Remember us," she wailed, her form dissolving into the darkness. "Embrace your power." The shadows erupted in a final, deafening roar. A blinding flash shot from the locket, surging through the air like lightning. Everything shattered. Light, shadow, the voices of clarion past echoing sharp in his ears, pain consuming him. Then, silence. The world fell away. John blinked, gasping for breath. Michael's hand slipping from his grasp. "Where are we?" he murmured, panic blooming in his chest. But the warmth had vanished. Shadows closed in, threatening, hungry. The dark ringing in his ears faded, and a chilling understanding gripped him. The truth was never a path to salvation. It was a path to his undoing. Questions flooded his mind. Had he lost Michael? Would he find him again? What had he unleashed? The choice had never been his alone, and the shadows were waiting to claim their due. As the tremors subsided, John blinked away the haze of chaos, the cries of fury swirling around him. The darkness still loomed at the edges, but a new resolve surged within him. Michael clung tightly to his side, eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. "Dad, what do we do?" "Hold on to me," John replied fiercely. He raised the locket high, its light flickering like a beacon in the storm. "I won't let you take him," he shouted, confronting the swirling shadows. "No!" Clara's voice rang out, now sounding more desperate than ever. "You don't understand what's at stake. You must embrace the darkness." "No," John shot back, the fight rising within him. "I choose my son. I choose the truth." He focused on the warmth growing in the locket, channeling everything he had into it. The blazing light surged forth, cutting through the darkness like a knife. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, as if struck. Daniel's figure faltered. Burst erupted from the locket, flooding the room with radiant energy. The shadows shrieked, swirling away like mist under the sun. "Michael, now!" John yelled, urging his son forward. With a swift movement, they leaped through the light, abandoning the shadows as it swallowed them whole. The brightness engulfed them, the chaos fading into silence. John opened his eyes to find himself back in the living room of the farmhouse. The oppressive gloom replaced by the soft glow of dawn filtering through the windows. Breathing heavily, he turned to find Michael beside him, his small face beaming with radiant relief. "Dad, you did it!" Michael cried, racing into John's arms. The weight of fear lifted, replaced by a swell of hope. But as John savored the moment, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows, softly illuminated by the dawn. It was Clara, her expression now both broken and serene. You faced it," she murmured. "You embraced the truth." "Clara?" John stepped back, the locket still in hand. "What now? What happens to us?" She sighed, a flicker of regret flashing across her face. "The darkness will always be a part of us, but together we can keep it at bay." Her gaze shifted to Michael, warmth softening her features. "He's the future. Protect him with everything you have." "Will you?" John asked, voice trembling, considering the path they had all walked. "Will you help us face this?" "I will try," Clara nodded. But doubt still lingered in her eyes. "But know this, the shadows never truly vanish. They wait for weakness. Stay strong." Before he could respond, Clara turned and melted into the light, leaving only echoes of regret in the space where she once stood. As the morning sun poured through the windows, John held Michael close, exhaling a breath full of promise and fear. "We'll be okay," he whispered. not entirely convinced but desperate to believe. "Dad, what happens next?" Michael asked. Looking up with wide eyes full of hope, with a shuddering breath, John gazed at the horizon, where the morning light met the shadows of the world. "We keep fighting. We find the truth together. No more secrets." As they stood together, a warm wind blew through the open window, carrying the faint whispers of the past, mingled with the calls of a bright new future. And though the shadows lingered somewhere in the depths, John knew they had taken the first step into the light, a step towards healing and understanding. But even as a fragile peace hung in the air, questions lived on. Would the darkness return? What else lay hidden in their family's tumultuous legacy? Only time would tell. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss upcoming exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait another second to share. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video description and get yours now. You need to watch this now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait another second to share.